and today it's great to have Pascal here. You're somebody that has been an incredible leader in the crypto space and technology for quite some time. Really right now with Ledger, what you're doing has been helping so many people get on board into the space through technology that's safe, that's secure, and that enables them to have a really seamless experience. So I'm excited to have you here and to get into your story. How did your passion for business leadership begin?
Oh, it was really like a step-by-step process. When I was 19, 20, 21, 22, I had no passion for business. I was just a student having fun. And I don't know. I think first it was out of fear. One day I realized that I had to do something with my life. Um, and then it was 2000, and so the internet was sort of booming, and so it was attracting like a lot of talent. And so I guess at the beginning it was luck, but as soon as I started to work, I understood the game, because I always felt like business is like a game, and I liked the game. I thought it was a fun game. It was actually something to win in the end. Like it was very clear to me what the game was, and it became very clear also how to play the game. And so I became competitive, and going from one thing to the other, and learning a lot from others, because I had no like pre-concept of what I wanted to do. So I became, pragmatism was sort of leading the way for me. And in business, being pragmatic is actually something rather good. Better than being dogmatic. Like being pragmatic helps you think outside of the box in a way, and see things for what they are, and try to make something simple out of a complex environment. I guess you look at complex things and then you try to extract what's the most pragmatic, the most simple. And so one thing leading to another. First part of my career was in advertising technology, and last thing that I did there was a company called Criteo that we listed at the Nasdaq in 2013. So that was a fantastic experience, and I did that as a chief operating officer. And after Criteo, trying to figure out what to do, and Bitcoin was there, similar to what the internet was in 2000 for me. Like something vastly unexplored, not many people working on it, not many companies. Actually, in 2000, internet was more advanced than what Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies were in 2014. So it was even more, I guess, daring. But since I had the experience of the internet, it was easier for me maybe to see what Bitcoin would become, because I had already seen, a similar movie with the internet from sort of 2000 to 2014. And so far it's been exactly that. And Bitcoin for me was not just new technology, but it was also fun people. Actually, my decision was mostly made on thinking and knowing that the party will be there, and that the most fun people will be at the Bitcoin/crypto party. And I guess people didn't disappoint. This is where you have the most interesting people, I think.
So what would you say that you took away from being the COO of a company that wound up becoming public, and also on the venture side, you were involved with Index and Mosaic. What did you learn most there that helped you lead today and be the leader of Ledger?
With Criteo and becoming public, what you learn is scale. How to take a company from a small startup in France to a global leader. And for me, building a business, wherever you start from, is about becoming a global leader on a vertical. And so for Criteo, it was personalized retargeting, and we had teams all over the planet. We actually conquered both East and West, which is very rare, and organically too, I might add, which is very rare for a European startup. It's very rare that you would succeed organically in Japan, Korea, and as well in UK and US, and of course every other country like Brazil, Germany, etc., etc. And so scalability and to prepare a company to go public and to become a public company, it's actually, in business is it's big boys territory. Like, you actually learn how to build a real company, and that's amazing. And like I just said, you build your career by learning one thing after the other successfully and learning from others. And like I said, at Criteo, I was chief operating officer, so everything about business scalability and finance and HR, etc. Like, been there, done that, got the T-shirt. But what I didn't do at Criteo was to raise money, and so because that was the CEO, Pascal Gauthier, who was in charge of that. Like, we had a segregation of duties, and he was doing this, I was doing the other, and so I had to learn how to do it. And the best way to learn, I thought, was to join the dark side of the force. You go work with VCs, you see how they do it and how they react when entrepreneurs present, and so you become them, and then you escape and you go back being a rebel, I guess. And that was my plan all along. I was sort of hesitant, when people have a first success and they make some money, then ultimately sometimes they don't want to go back to be an entrepreneur because it's actually very hard. And I would say it's harder to be an entrepreneur than to be an investor. And it's obviously harder because when you're an entrepreneur, you bet everything on one thing. I bet everything on Ledger, sort of, more or less. When you're an investor, you sort of spread your bet on a few companies. So the level of stress is very different. When you're an entrepreneur, your company can die overnight. Something can happen and poof, your dream is gone. As an investor, you've edged your bet. One company is doing well, the other not so well, etc. So it's, I would argue, it's less stressful. There is stress everywhere, of course, and hard work everywhere. So I'm not trying to bash anyone, but trying to be pragmatic and looking at things the way they are. And so you learn with VCs and with good friends at Index and at Mosaic. Toby Koppel is someone that taught me a lot about sort of what I know now, how you build a fund, how you invest, how you choose your companies, how it is actually hard work. A lot of people think being a VC is sort of shooting from the hip on a hunch. There is actually hard work behind it, depending on how you do it, obviously. But for Mosaic and Toby and the team there, and Simon Levine, etc., I can tell you it's really hard work. And so once I knew that, then I knew how to help a company better, which I've done with Ledger, and I've done also, build a company better, which I've done for my company, Kaiko, that now Ambre Sobiran runs in France, that has become actually one of the leading company in providing market data for cryptocurrency and on-chain, both off-chain and on-chain data. And 5 years after I joined Ledger as an investor, I became the CEO, and because I had learned all of these things, then it was possible for me to be the CEO of Ledger, and possible for me to do rounds like the $450 million that we did in June 21. Like, only because I had these experiences, and only because I was taught by people that were smarter than me in many ways. Then I could take from their knowledge and bring it into mine, and become a leader with now the operational side, but also the corporate side.
Mm-hmm. So, why is it so important, this like aspect of and having like a secure crypto device that you can store your crypto on? Why does that matter so much? Like, that's the focus of the company. Why is it so important?
Well, it is very important because it's the only way to do it. You drop the apple, it falls, and so you cannot fly. It's there truth in life, absolute truth in life, like that. And so similarly, if you want to hold your private keys, like, you need a hardware wallet. Like, there is no other way around it. If you want to be a sovereign individual, if you want to have your private keys in self-custody, and real self-custody and real sovereign individual, there is no other way than to have your private keys on a hardware wallet. Software is not secure enough, phones are not secure, computers are not secure, a bunch of technologies like account abstraction, they're all good and well, but it's too young, they're in their infancy, they're limited in terms of what you can do with them, and also there are a bunch of attacks like man in the middle, where actually someone takes over the screen of your phone or your computer. That still works. So in terms of technology, security technologies, they are still inferior to a hardware wallet, and especially one with a large screen like Ledger Stax, for example, where you can actually see a secure screen and see what is on the secure screen. A lot of people don't understand, what is the innovation behind Ledger, and especially on the secure screen. Your screen is actually secure on a Ledger. It is not on your phone and your computer. So you might have anything you want on your phone and computer in terms of software security, like I said, account abstraction or various other tech that sort of claim security. Sure, but your screen is still not secure. So because it's not secure, then you're sort of blind signing everything, even without knowing it, which is even worse. And so the best form of security, and the best form of security for you to be a sovereign individual and to have your private keys in self-custody is actually Ledger. But also it's the best security to sort of hold your keys, because people always refer to Ledger as cold storage, which is not. It's a bit of a fallacy that is coming from the past, like when you had Bitcoin only in 2010, and what would you do with your private keys but to hold forever. But that actually is not true. Like, you hold your keys, but then you have to do transactions, and so when you do a transaction, you effectively online, and so you have to be as secure when you're online than if you're not online. And so Ledger isn't cold storage. Ledger is temperature agnostic, because you are as secure whether you use your private keys or not to make a transaction. And so you use your private keys to make a transaction, or not using them when they're at rest and you don't need to touch them. And so it's obviously the same level of security. And so, Ledger is a beautiful product that has been designed to do all of the above now, because with the combination of your Ledger, Stax, X, S Plus, and your Ledger Live that runs on your phone and computer, is the same combination as, if you remember, the iPod and iTunes, you have the same type of usage. Then on Ledger Live now, you can buy, sell, swap, stake. I mean, you can do everything that you want with your crypto. This is really where you manage your crypto. So not only it's paramount to secure your private keys at rest, but now it becomes paramount to secure any kind of transaction that you want to do on sort of any blockchain or Web3 app, basically.
So you touched on the aspect of the stacks and like why it was important to make it. How do you think that the stacks is going to have an impact on the industry? It's a very different type of product. It's like an iPod. There's a lot of seamless nature in its design. It's easier to use. But what impact do you think that will have now on bringing more people to Web3?
Well, that is the impact. Like, we are trying to bring more people to Web3. And why? Because we've made the experience, we worked a lot on user experience and user interface, and, to make it much easier to use. When technologies hit the market, usually they are technologies, actually. Engineers lead innovation. And because engineers lead innovation, at the beginning, innovation is always designed by engineers for engineers type of. If you remember the web in 95 or 98 or, these early days, just to connect to the internet was actually, a thing. Like, it was not obvious to everyone. And I remember even me, like, on my computer, coding on the DOS and trying to open ports, etc., to get internet connectivity, which is something that is long gone. Like, nobody does that anymore. You just open your iPhone and voila, it works. Like, you're connected to the internet and it works beautifully. But what people don't remember is that 30 years ago, it didn't work like that. It was much harder. And so, therefore, when you look at cryptocurrency technologies or, public blockchain technologies, we are still in their infancy. But, 10 years ago, it was even worse. Like, normal people could not understand how this worked. And so you needed, like, very geeky, savvy techie people to connect with it. But if you want mass adoption, and I think ultimately this is what we all want. You could think it's debatable because sometimes you look at threads on X, and you have people that are really pushing against this idea of scalability because they would prefer if cryptocurrencies remain the way they were, etc. And with all the friction, but that's not realistic, and when for the internet was the same, then we moved from sort of technology to product, and suddenly companies started to design products with the technology as a slave to the product and not the other way around. Consumers don't care about technology; they just care about usage. Like, does it work? Does it not work? Does it solve a problem for me? Yes or no? They actually don't care whether you run on whatever kind of technology, etc., as long as they have a good experience and you solve everyday problems for them. And so, this is the shift that we've done at Ledger, to design products first, and and then think about what would be the right technology to enhance the products, but not the other way around. And Stax is the first stab at this. Now we are fulfilling pre-orders, and soon we're gonna open Stax for new orders. We have around like 100,000 people that are waiting for new orders to become available. So that's a lot of customers to serve already. But then we will see. I mean, what we know now is the product is in the market. The feedback that we're getting on the product is really strong. It's actually the best that we had hoped for. You hope for the best, you fear the worst, and then you see where you fall. But right now we really on the best possible feedback. People really love the product, and they love the product for exactly the kind of things that we designed the product for. Like, they really like what we hope that they would like, and how we designed the product, and why we designed the product for. And so that's really great to see. But we need now a few more weeks, a few more months to push more products in the market, to have more users, etc., and to see if we reach the target, which is to bring a new set of users into self-custody. And we think it's happening. So, but we need a few months to have real data and to push more products in the market.
It's definitely exciting to hear. So you had an incredible designer that was involved with Stax, with Tony Fadell, behind some incredible products at Apple. Why did you want to bring somebody like him into creating the product, and how impactful was he with working with your team?
So why? It's a question of strategy and opportunity. Strategically, to do exactly what I just described, to go from technology to product first. And so for that, like, you need, it's always, to build a company is a combination of, people that have been there, done that, got the t-shirt, and also high potential. I think you need to have a healthy mix of the two in the company. High potential are people that have not done it before, but they are high energy, they're very competent, and, they go from one step to the other, etc. But if you only have high potential and they've never done it before, then you sort of had to reinvent the wheel, but the wheel already exists, and you don't need to reinvent everything. And especially when it's something as hard as designing the product, and to design it for millions, if not tens of millions of users. Like, how do you do that? And of course, people are smart, and you can read a lot of books, etc. And I have done that. Like, I've read a lot of books about Apple. I've done, a bunch of Steve Jobs videos on YouTube, etc. And actually, once you just do that, it's not really hard work. Like, you just watch, a few hours of video, and you read like a few books, etc., etc. Steve Jobs tells you everything you need to know about, building a great company, and a hardware company at that, and how to design product first, etc., etc. Okay, it's one thing to understand it. It's another thing to know how to do it. And the devil is in the details. Tony wrote a great book called Build, where he explained in details, what that means. And, for people that have, people that have time, and, that are interested in what I'm saying right now, I think Build is a great book to read, because it explains actually how you do it. And so the strategy was to bring someone like Tony, and the opportunities that Tony was in Paris, and Tony was good friend with Ian Rogers, which is Ian is our chief experience officer, and I knew also Tony before working with him, and so it was an opportunity, and it was a strategy. What needed to be done, and we had the opportunity to do it. And so what we had to do was to convince Tony first, and then Tony to sort of also convince us that like he knew better, and that's what happened. Like because we presented the company, we explained to Tony where we wanted to go, so he sort of agreed on the strategy and the direction, but he didn't really agree on the steps. And so he came back to us and he said, no, like, these are not the right steps. Let me tell you what the right steps are, and let me tell you why. And this is when he presented Stax, and I was just like, yeah, okay, that makes sense. And his plan was the same plan as us. Like we were going, heading towards the same direction, but the steps that he proposed for in his plan, and especially with Stax, were actually better. And so this is the thing: when you work with great people, usually if they have great idea, they can explain also why they have these ideas, and this comes from experience. And so in order to compete in this world of consumer electronics, and in order to build a company at scale in consumer electronics, you need experience, because you're not the first to do it. So you can't just wing everything. You need to have actually deep knowledge. You need to have deep connections with the supply chain, with companies like Foxconn, with companies like E-Ink, etc., etc. So experience and network is sometimes what's needed, and Tony definitely came with both.
Wow. Pretty interesting to hear. So just the last question that I have, what do you aspire to accomplish now personally, and professionally with Ledger? What are some of your short-term and long-term goals, let's say over the next 10 years?
Yeah, I think the next 10 years is the way to think about it. I feel that we just, this is a 10 years anniversary, and this is definitely one period, and that ends with the delivery of Stax, and the next period begins with the delivery of Stax. And Stax is like a cornerstone to the future of not just Ledger, but also cryptocurrency and online security. And I think what's happening is, we say that, buy and hold was the past, and connectivity is sort of the future. And because connectivity is the future, you will need your private keys to engage with public blockchains and application and experiences that will be built on top of public blockchains. And I think it's becoming clearer because, up till very recently, Bitcoin was really buy and hold, and now you have all these layer twos that are coming on top of Bitcoin. You have all these applications that people want to be on top of Bitcoin, and so therefore you see really why you need your private keys. It was more obvious with Ethereum and Solana so far, but now Bitcoin is joining the party, and so it's clear that this has been designed to be a peer-to-peer network, public peer-to-peer network, not something that is been designed for pure speculative purposes. Why do you need Bitcoin? Oh, I want to make money. No, actually, that's not why it has been designed. Because if Bitcoin has just been designed so you can buy an ETF, then why Bitcoin again? Has no real value. The fact that it's been designed as a peer-to-peer electronic payment system, and that it's a public good actually for the people to be able to transact without any intermediary, and something that is, censorship resistant and all of the above. That's the real innovation. That's what we need. And so therefore, self-custody is not it's an absolute must. People have asked me over the past 10 years, like, why self-custody again? I'm like, well, it's just that if there is no self-custody, then there is no cryptocurrencies, there's no Bitcoin. Self-custody is the ethos of Bitcoin, and not because it's a philosophical point of view. It's because this is the way the product has been designed. The product has been designed so you and I can exchange value peer-to-peer without anyone interfering and taking commission in the middle. And so we need to keep it that way. And you need great technology to do so. And so therefore, I think the next 10 years, we'll see a lot of the applicative layer being built on top of public blockchain. And so a bunch of use cases that are very important. This is why like the hardware roadmap and the general roadmap of Ledger is to design product and experiences that cater to that future. And this is why, with Stax you see bigger screens. This is why you have an NFC chip into it, so you can tap your Stax to do a bunch of things. This is why you have a touch screen. All of these things have been designed to enhance the experience and to get more applications compatible with your Ledger hardware wallet. And we have a long roadmap of hardware products that is to come in the next 10 years, exactly for that kind of reason. Think about your phone in 2000, think about your phone today, see how the experience has changed. The same thing will happen to your hardware wallet in the next, 10 to 20 years.
Definitely agree. I think it's going on a great trajectory, and the work that you guys have been doing has been so important to the space and helping people have this right for self custody and be able to be empowered to be with crypto and make it something that's just not just about holding; it's about using it and with transactions. So I appreciate you coming on and sharing your story. I think there's a lot people can learn, and I'm definitely excited to see what you accomplish with Ledger next. I think your leadership's been so impactful to the company and especially to the space overall. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you for the kind words, and bye, everyone.